So this is the fun part. I'll talk to you about how to have an effective conversation with somebody about this issue and how to tackle the objections that come along with it and the challenges generally speaking. So what I learned from the get-go with doing outreach is that this is indeed a sales process. A lot of the things that I learned in sales are identical to the process of taking somebody through the process of going from I'm not interested, bacon tastes too good, to okay, I totally agree and I should do this, how do I get started? That is a sales process. And what I noticed is that there are many things that are identical. For example, objection handling. That's a term that comes from the sales world, but it is exactly the same thing that happens with non-vegans when they're dishing these arguments at you. The same thing happens with the conversation itself. There's opening questions, there's discovery questions. There's questions in general that we like to ask because, as a rule of thumb, we don't want to lecture people on the streets unless they want to be lectured. So that's an art you have to learn. You have to learn when is the appropriate time to drop truth bombs on people and just have them withstand them and listen and actually absorb them. Because a lot of the times they won't. And the best way to engage in conversation and have people engaging back is through questions. Generally speaking, this works a lot better. So what do I mean by that? I mean using the Socratic method. Does anybody not know what Socratic questioning is? Everybody knows what it is?
You should explain it.
I should probably explain it, thank you. So Socratic questioning comes from Socrates. Essentially, it's posing the question instead of making a statement. You may want to tell somebody that animal exploitation is morally wrong, but it's better to just simply ask them if they think so. Because you're going to actually get the same result. You're going to have them admit to the fact that it isn't morally acceptable anyway. So you might as well just ask the question. That way you're both engaged in the conversation. If you dish someone at something at someone, you're not leaving them in any position to respond. So if you want to give somebody a place to respond, ask them the question. So that's Socratic questioning. There is a sales process that you have to take somebody through no matter what you're selling them on. So whether you're trying to sell somebody a car or you're trying to sell somebody on veganism, there is a 3-step process generally speaking, and I'll tell you exactly how that works. Now you all know, or you all should know, that veganism is extremely logical. It's extremely rational. And we have far too many facts on our side for this to ever be flawed in terms of logic and reason. So it's important that you do talk about the facts, that you stay on reason and logic, but please don't forget the emotion. Because when you're selling somebody on something, the first step is to have them emotionally convicted. You can talk about the reasons for being vegan all day long, and you should. But if you do not tie in an emotional connection, emotional conviction with what it is that you're talking about, that person is not going anywhere. They're not changing and they're not shifting. The best way I've found to bring somebody into emotion and being emotionally convicted in what it is that you're talking about is to always go back to the injustice. The sense of injustice is the most painful thing to connect with when you're talking about this message. It isn't necessarily compassion. A lot of vegans love to say that being vegan comes down to compassion, and I utterly disagree. For me, it had nothing to do with compassion. I don't believe you have to love a being in order to not exploit them and to not kill them. I don't believe it comes from love. I believe it comes from fairness. I believe it comes from justice and doing the right thing. Do unto others as you would have do unto you. It's a very basic level of human decency, or decency in general. I don't believe that comes from compassion. So what I mean is, when you're talking to somebody, the most profound feeling that you can have instilled inside them is the sense of injustice. When they connect to how wrong this is, that is what will get people really moving inside, angry, because that's what all of this should result in, is pure anger for how wrong this all is. So if you can get them to really connect with that, you are on to a very good start in this conversation and getting them to understand veganism. That is the first point that you should be trying to reach with everybody, is getting them to connect with that sense of injustice. So an example might be when you're talking to a person, people like to ask me, what would you use as an opening line? Give me an opening line, or give me a line to use. I like to say, hello. That is the best way to start a conversation. Just be a natural human being and have a conversation with people. When you have the conversation, I like to ask certain questions that bring it back to the sense of injustice. One of those questions is, have you ever seen this kind of footage before? How does it make you feel? Now, people might not be willing to dive into their emotions too deep initially. It might be very surface level initially. They might just say, it's wrong. I think this is really wrong. But they probably won't go deeper into it. So through the conversation, just keep trying to make sure that they connect with the sense of injustice. I like to also ask questions like, did you know that this is certified organic, free range and humane? That these are the highest standards that they currently practice on animals in meat, dairy and egg production. That also is going to connect them to the sense of injustice because we've been lied to. We've been lied to by these industries telling us that this is humane, that this is free range, that this is grass-fed, this is organic, this is healthy, hormone-free, antibiotic-free. But it's not. These products come from pure torture and are extremely toxic for our health. So we are being lied to. And that's something that people need to realize as well from the point of these industries. They've been lying to us. And we are just the messenger letting people know. Of course, connecting to the animals and what it must be like for an animal to go through the process of being enslaved, tortured, and killed. When you walk somebody through that process of what it would be like to be a cow, a chicken, a turkey, or a pig, or a fish, that is another way of connecting people to that sense of injustice. So I hope I've covered the first part of the process for all of you so you will understand exactly what it takes to get somebody to connect to that. The second step is to make it about the individual and why they should make a difference and not leave it to the rest of the world to make a change. Once somebody is connected and convicted to the sense of injustice and the emotion, then they need to actually feel that they need to do something, that they can't just leave this for the rest of the world to handle. So how do you do that? I like to ask, do you think this is a problem that should be eradicated from this world? And if they say yes, which they usually do, then I ask them, what do you think you can do about it? What power do you believe that you have? And then usually they'll say, well, maybe I can stop eating so much meat. Or they might say something along those lines. Then that's your opportunity to actually educate them on how much power we actually have as an individual. Now, according to my calculations, you spare the lives, not save, but spare the lives of 1,000 animals approximately every single year that you are vegan. And that means that you're not doing anything, you're just eating plants when you're vegan. It's a position of non-action. You're neutral when it comes to this injustice. It means you don't commit injustices against animals. It's a non-action. So essentially what that means is 1,000 animals. So that's the power we have as individuals. Let them know that when you're vegan, you're sparing the lives of around 1,000 animals. My calculation comes from all of the animals that die in these facilities as a result of no veterinary care, and all the animals that are not even counted in marine animal agriculture. For example, for every 1 kilo of fish, there are 5 kilos of discarded animals that are not even consumed. There are so many more other victims involved in all of these industries that I could get into, but my calculation is about 1,000. You don't have to directly quote that. You can use whatever figure you feel is right, but it's a lot of animals, and I'm sure we can all agree. Every year there are a lot of animals that we are sparing with our choice to be vegan and not support these products.